Oh, let's do it live on a Friday draft edition. Hold on. Got a bit of a hot situation here.
No, that was me.
I'm sorry. I'm a little hot. There we go. How's that? Yep.
Penny
now
likes
you're
it
there.
hot.
You had Carmen's.
Nope,
I switched out your chairs, but I forgot to adjust your
I
headphones.
feel like you gave me the bad chair.
I think it's
No,
right there. In fact,
I did not.
there's evidence.
Yeah. You know which one it is.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I haven't moved any chairs except two.
We are going to pick tonight, which is exciting.
Oh,
Maybe.
baby. No, we are. Stop
sure?
it, Gibby.
That was a lot of fun. My experience was different than yours in that I wasn't doing a live radio show, so I was able to get the kids from La Crosse, and we were back and we were ready to go right at 8:00. As drama goes, I don't know how you do better than that. As newsworthiness goes, I don't know how you do better than that. It was incredibly entertaining theater. All of this is, whether it's NFL, college football, NBA, whatever, it's all just television shows. It's all it is.
Awesome television show.
That was an A+, man. That was
was
Pine
great.
Barrens Sopranos last night. And we didn't even have we didn't have anything in it. No dog in the hunt, but I still loved it.
I did too. There were some things that happened that I didn't love.
Sure.
There were things that happened that I did love, and we'll go through, what we kind of thought and our big takeaways. But captivating theater. It was sad at times when I knew that we could not trade back in because there were people you're like, oh man, this guy'd be great here.
Like Nolan Smith.
I don't even talk about the Eagles. It's like the league is colluding. They're like, look, the AFC is so loaded. Our only chance is to make a super team in the
Super
NFC.
team.
So we're gonna just let the Eagles do it. Like we're gonna all be complicit in this and help the Eagles out.
Have you seen they're too deep on the defensive line? Have you seen it?
I think I could do it off the top of my head.
I know you're not hard of seeing.
This is without seeing, but I think I could do it off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So edges, you got Hassan Reddick. You've got Josh Sweat. People forget about Josh Sweat. I had 11 sacks last year.
That's
no
right.
big deal. Went
That's
to the
right.
Pro Bowl in 2021.
That's right.
Your backups then would be Graham and Nolan Smith.
Yep.
Your interior.
Brandon Graham. Continue. Keep going.
Your interior is Fletcher
Fletch,
Cox,
yep.
Jordan Davis, and then now you got
Jalen Carter, who
Jalen
most
Carter.
people thought was the best player, period, in
In
the
the draft.
like the surest thing in the draft.
they got on
As a-
Dane's
as a player.
on Dane's big board. They got picks numbers 3 and 11.
Picking at 9 and
30.
30.
And I understand. Well, some people say, well, Nolan Smith's too small, to play in a 4-3 end. Well, the Eagles,
They're not worried about that, man.
they play a 5-man front.
Right. They're not. The punditry.
You are not going. I said this last night. If we go to Philly for these joint practices and we come out of there feeling like we're in their realm or our offense is able to operate, we're going to be good.
Oh, you'll know then.
You'll know that.
You'll know then. Yeah.
You won't know if we're bad then because
No.
they could be
They
that
could be
good,
elite, but you'll know if you can hang.
If we can hang, we're going to be good.
Then you know you can play.
Yeah.
No, they're the other kind of big theme of the night, other than just the entertainment value of it all and just how exciting it all was with all of the trades and everything, is, I mean, all this damn thing is too far away from the combine and too far away from free agency, and stuff just gets made up that is nonsense.
But it adds to the theater.
It does, but like what like CJ Stroud went through the last month of the questioning of his intelligence and everything else, all to go number 2 overall, to the point where he bursts into tears upon doing so. The idea that Will Levis, because of a Reddit post, was the odds went from minus 4,000 to minus 400 to go number 1 overall, and last night was the odds-on favorite to go number 2 overall, and then does not get drafted. So there's an incredible misinformation that's out there.
And supposedly it's something with his toe, which
Well,
never
that's
came
post
out,
haste, though. Nobody had that during.
'cause
More
that's
saying that at
probably-
the end.
That's probably real. The stuff that's real, like injury
Jeez.
stuff, doesn't get leaked out. Medicals doesn't get leaked out.
Right.
That's when you see somebody who, oh my God, everybody said he was going in the first round. He goes in the 4th round. Oh, well, it turns out he has a degenerative condition in his knee. That stuff never gets leaked out. So there's some truth to that. But at the same point, it's a quarterback. And if it needed surgery on his toe, like you still want him in your operation. You still want him in a first round. So you have him for 5 years at a minimum. Doesn't make any sense to me.
There's also
Rough day for Prisco.
I didn't even pay attention. What's he got going on?
Oh, he said Will Levis should be the number 1 pick in this draft and is the best player in this draft.
Rough day.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, in history, he could turn out to be right.
Yeah. There is a steady diet of these. Like, I'm telling you, like, in order to go, and we don't probably need to feel too sorry for Will Levis by the look of the company he keeps. He's doing quite well. He's all right. But from the standpoint of
sad though,
very sad. Yeah, heartbreaking. And you think about it. You just think about it from his perspective, like getting dressed at 4 o'clock. Did he even bring a second suit?
he's not going tonight.
Good. I don't blame him. I wouldn't either.
I
I wouldn't go back either. I'm good. I'll see you on down the road. But like, can you imagine getting back to the hotel at 11:30 at night and going, "What the hell just happened, man?
Yeah, rough.
How did this happen?" And we saw this with Brady Quinn. We saw this with Aaron Rodgers. We saw it with Geno Smith. We saw it with there was one more that, I mean, heck, Johnny felt like, not to this point, but there's been a lot of guys who have slipped out. Derek Carr, Brett Favre. There's a lot of guys who have slipped into that second round that nobody thought would. And it's a tough spot. It just has to feel like you're suffocating.
Yeah,
when you're in that spot.
We had, I believe, NFL Network on in the studio last night, and they didn't show him much. ESPN apparently showed him a lot.
Well, so that you probably missed the reference then on the company.
No, I
beats.
saw that.
Well, you're not hard of seeing.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Not.
No, he was constantly, because he was Kuiper's number 2 QB.
Right.
So every time, and Greeny was hosting the ESPN stuff, so every time he could shift it back to quarterback, he was driving it back to quarterback. Is this a spot for Levis? Is this a spot for Levis? And it was like, well, no, none of these spots are a spot for Levis. Once you get, that's the thing about being in a quarterback draft where 3 of them go like that. Much of it has been addressed. So now what you're hoping for is a team that's got like I thought maybe Minnesota, that's
what I was saying on the show. Minnesota.
After Cousins, like they could run him out there, like maybe that was it. But I think what happened was there was just too much value in the back end of the first round that you couldn't take somebody who wasn't going to play in the first round.
And if Minnesota was in the AFC,
of course,
then you could take a quarterback. I think in the NFC, they you can't say they're not the favorites.
They went 13-4 last year.
Right. So they're still a team. It's funny. There were decisions that were made yesterday in this draft, and let me give a couple of them that stood out to me. Like Tennessee drafting a guard at number 11. That was one that kind of blew my mind.
Well, do you want to do it now?
What?
On like what blew our mind?
We can do it. I was just going to say, you're going to like my line, though. I had a line yesterday, and I applied it to Indianapolis, and why I was arguing with Gerard with Indianapolis, why taking Anthony Richardson was, number one, a great pick. I think
brilliant.
Fit is great. The coaching staff for him is perfect in terms of coming right off of what they did with Hurts.
The running back.
And Jonathan Taylor back there. There's no urgency to play him. Gardner Minshew knows this offense. He was just in it a year ago, so you've got a mentor there for him. Couldn't have been a better spot. I love the upside. And he's like, well, they're going to try to play. They got to try to win. And what I would say to them, and I said this to the Titans as well when they made their pick, and it's I love you, but you're not serious teams.
No, yeah, right. That's exactly right. You're not
serious teams in the AFC.
No,
you're not. I'm sorry.
And you're not going to ever be.
Well,
by
maybe
doing that.
Richardson could make them, but Tennessee's
Tennessee.
Not. Yeah, Tennessee's pick was
Tennessee
absurd.
taking a guard.
Yeah. Crazy.
What are you doing?
Crazy. Crazy.
Just staying on a treadmill, I guess. I have no idea.
I think somebody's got to clear the path for Derrick Henry.
Yeah, that was stupefying. Yeah. It wasn't even in the vicinity of the most stupefying things, though.
I have my worst pick by a mile, and I don't even care how good he is. That's how bad I think it was.
Well, I think there were 2 that felt like that to me. Number 1, Bijan Robinson to Atlanta at 8 was insanity.
Insanity.
So there was one team, and I'll hold to it. I still believe it. There was one team that made sense to draft him high, and that was Philly.
Yeah.
That was it.
I'd rather they drafted him, though, than Carter, to be honest with you.
Who's this now?
Philly.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. But they were the one team that had the luxury of roster and
picks,
filled a specific need and an ability to fill other needs with more picks because they had 2 ones.
Yeah.
They were the one that could have taken him that high. I don't know what Atlanta's doing. Are they running the single wing?
I'm going to give you 2 scenarios. Okay, scenario 1.
The wishbone?
Scenario 1 is that Team A last year in the 5th round drafted a converted linebacker to running back.
Mm-hmm.
He rushed for 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
And 5 yards a carry.
That's right.
for that team as a rookie on a 5th-year contract for the next 3 years.
Yep.
Same team was 3rd in the NFL in rushing. And yes, Mariota was there for a little bit, but he wasn't running around like Hurts or like the teams that led the league in rushing.
Correct.
So they were the best traditional rushing team in the league already.
Yep.
Team B brought in a free agent who was considered to be past his prime. He led the league in touchdowns, rushing touchdowns a year ago. They didn't even keep him. They basically swapped him out for a younger model in David Montgomery. DeAndre Swift has scored a touchdown in 55% of the games that he's played in the NFL, despite being hurt and despite not getting goal line carries. Somebody else on their team, I think, said 17 or 20 or whatever it was Jamal Williams had. And so it's apparent, should be to those teams more than any other in the league, that we can put together a committee, we can put together running backs from anywhere, and we're going to be really successful.
Yeah.
And those two teams
That's right.
went out and drafted a running back at 8 and 12 overall. And I realize Gibbs is very much a space back. He's going to be a receiver. He's going to catch 60 balls in their offense. That's all wonderful.
They couldn't have got him at the top of the 2nd round? Where they're picking today?
They could have gotten Christian Gonzalez. And the thing about it is, for every Richard Sherman and Tariq Woolen, oh, by the way, they both play for Seattle, for every stud corner that comes out of the 5th, 6th round, there's probably 5 to 10 running backs that have had 1,000-yard seasons. And the Falcons had one of them. Like, how much better can he be than 5 yards a carry? The maximum is realistically 6 yards a carry?
Yeah, I mean, that's peak Jamal Charles situation, like that type of stuff. Like that just – no, it was just those 2 picks. You're right. You're not serious people.
No.
I mean, it's just –
and the Lions had a chance to be serious.
And the Lions did it twice.
Twice.
They took an off-ball linebacker.
Who isn't a Roquan Smith.
No.
He's not a Devin White. He's not.
He's Luke Wilson. Or the kid down in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Luke Wilson, yeah.
Solid.
Yeah, really solid player.
Is it Luke Wilson?
No, it's Logan.
Logan Wilson. Yeah, Luke Wilson.
Luke Wilson is Owen Wilson's
the brother of the Butterscotch Cowboy.
Yeah. Logan Wilson. Like, he's that type of player.
Solid. He's
really solid player.
Cover.
Yeah, for sure.
But you don't even 18.
No, not when you have 5 picks in a stretch between 12 and 70. I mean, you could get him at any point in there. I mean, that was – you think about what the Lions could have done, and they've had a rough couple of weeks because they had all the gambling stuff from last week.
Yeah.
You think about what the Lions could have done. Christian Gonzalez – they just traded Okudah. They could have gotten Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah.
They could have gotten Jackson Smith and Jigba if they wanted to keep getting weapons. He was there. They could have gotten Quentin Johnson. They could have gotten Nolan Smith. They could have gotten somebody to pair opposite Hutchinson at a peak position.
I would have taken, like you said, Christian Gonzalez and Nolan Smith.
Yeah,
let's
done.
go. Put him on turf.
Yeah, and then go. And now you're set. And instead they went off-ball linebacker and running back. I mean, it's like the one thing they don't need. Why would they need running backs?
The Falcons one, though.
The Falcons one is worse because they're trying. I mean, they're both really bad. I don't know if I can qualify which one is worse. They're both just absolutely. They're just clown show.
It's crazy. The Falcons taking Bijan Robinson was so crazy to me. Again, like, what do you think? He can't be twice as good as Algier was last year. He just can't.
No, and you still have a bunch of issues throughout the roster.
Yeah. That was a team, honestly, that could have taken Levis if they liked him. That was a team that could have traded back because the Eagles were to come up for Jalen Carter, traded back, and then traded back again and gotten Jackson Smith and Jigba. So you've got Pitts, Smith and Jigba, and Drake London running around. You already have a dominant run game.
Yeah. Already.
Dominant.
Now you pair all of it together, and instead
you're like, oh, so our run game is going to be a little bit better. But, again, you can find running backs late.
Yeah, there's no.
It's great to have a guy that's a superstar.
Yep.
But it is also not sustainable, and it's a position that we're in, which is why I do think we'll draft a running back at some point. By the way, as soon as they drafted Gibbs, I said on the radio, I want DeAndre Swift here.
Oh, yeah.
Give me DeAndre Swift as our third down back, and let's go.
Yeah.
Keeps Chubb fresh. He is electric in space.
Yeah.
He's on a rookie deal. It's a 1-year rental, but you probably get him for a 5th-round pick. Why not?
Yeah,
He immediately makes our offense more dangerous out of 11 personnel. Immediately.
no doubt. Yeah, there's no doubt. So all of that stuff was swirling, and then you also had what Houston did at the top. And I know
Good but insane.
I understand the insane part. I also appreciate the good part.
Same.
Because, and Jeremiah was the only one to have it. If you can identify, they played it really smartly, as we astutely pointed out yesterday on the show. Like, you take the quarterback first, and then you limit the leverage that Arizona had at 3.
They still paid a pretty
They,
penny.
they did, and they did pay a pretty penny, but they got, in their mind, they got their core, and it has to be right. You got to be right, but this whole thing is a gamble. They got the best defensive player in this draft, and they got their quarterback.
They did
got,
what we could have done in that draft back in Miles' draft.
The Miles draft,
If we
yes.
just stood pat, we could have drafted Miles and Deshaun Watson in the same draft.
right.
That's what they feel like they did.
That's what they feel like they did. Yeah. And we'll figure
We'll
out
see.
if they did or not. But I guess I don't have a problem with the give up if you believe in the players that you drafted. Because I do think that what we've found is that it's really hard to hit on these. And sometimes they're a little overvalued.
Agreed. I think it was a very premium price that they paid on whatever chart it is that you use.
Yeah. It was, for sure. It was.
But they got their top 2 guys.
If he's 80% of Miles and CJ Stroud's 80% of Deshaun, or 90% of Deshaun, then
You feel very good
you've
about
done it. You've crushed it.
The problem is, in the AFC, that's not good enough.
Not good enough. No.
And won't be for
no.
the next decade.
Will not be. Day 2 of the draft requires a special Friday edition of the mailbag. Tweet the questions to us at Browns_Daily. Use the hashtag AskCBD. We will turn our attention to our picks. We will also have Dane Brugler joining us here in a little bit to give us a preview of some of the guys who are out there and available. That is still ahead. We're off and running. We're picking today, kids. It's Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Be sure to catch all the action of round 2 of the NFL draft tonight. The University Hospital's Cleveland Browns radio network. Coverage starts at 7. Ken, Nathan, and Tyvis Powell for a complete day 2 reaction and analysis for that there. Oh, we did we get to – no, we were off air when Lamar signed.
Correct.
I was.
That's why I said
I got to
it
come
was a
back on.
crazy 22 hours.
That's right, so that happened afterwards. I believe we had that.
No, you
had-
had
you
that.
Games to Lamar Jackson. There's just no way.
Well, we knew he was playing for the Ravens.
No, but there was just no way in hell. This goes back to the combine, any conversation we had with an NFL guest around the Rodgers situation and the Lamar Jackson situation. Packers, Ravens, smart organizations. They do not draft without certainty. Would never do it. Like
Nope.
it's just common sense. They were never going to do it. So the notion that they were going to, well, I don't know who's going to quarterback the Ravens next year. What? They don't do that.
Yep.
It's not how they roll. So they got it locked up. I guess he laughs last. Once the Hurts deal happens, then his deal can get done because then he's off of the 230 number. So once the Hurts deal happens, that allowed for it. He had the agent fee on it was $7.5 million, and he gave that to his mom. Did you see that?
I did not.
No.
Yeah, he gave the $7.5 million to his mom because she was his business partner on it. So that's pretty good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and then they had a pretty dang good draft. I like Zay Flowers a lot.
I do
from a weapon
too.
standpoint.
They haven't been able. So here's
They haven't hit on many of them though.
No, and here's my question: what would you, or how would you describe Zay Flowers' best? What are his best attributes in your mind? He is fast, but he's more of a yards after the catch guy.
I mean, they use. I think it's really ambitious when they were doing this, but like Louis Riddick was just emphatic that his comp was Tyreek Hill, and I went, "That's
He's a
extreme." That's extreme. They had some clips up that showed him running routes similar to Tyreek's, that he was so fast that like when people turned, then you throw it to him, that type of stuff. They've done a night now that they have Lamar in the mix, and if they can be healthy, they're going to be a problem. They were 10-7, unhealthy, and without Lamar for 5 games last year.
Yeah. Here's the thing: what I see from when all the clips they showed of him, yes, he can run, but he wasn't really running by people vertically. He's very good on like the overs. But Lamar, thus far, his toughest thing is hitting guys running cross in stride. So I don't know that necessarily fits. Now with Todd Monken there, though, they're going to have Odell on one side, Bateman on the other. They're going to have Flowers in the slot, and then they're going to have Andrews. Now the question becomes: are they going to play a lot more 11 personnel? And that takes Patrick Ricard off the field, which they're changing their offense. It could be scary if he can end up operating whatever it is that Monken puts out there. They're going to be very scary. The question remains the same thing. 1, can he survive the season? 2, can he win from the pocket when people know that they're trying to win from the pocket? And certainly getting him more weapons is a good way to go. But it's not something they haven't tried to do.
No, they have. They've tried. This
is their third
hole in their resume.
It's their third first-round pick at a wide receiver since 19. Hollywood Brown, Bateman, and now Flowers.
For whatever reason, they can't draft receivers, and the Bengals can't draft offensive linemen.
No.
Like they do everything else really well. The Bengals getting the defensive end out of Clemson at the back of the first round, and that speaks to, I mean, that's where the Bengals are right now is where we are, which is they're a little step ahead of us. But from the standpoint of your roster is set that you're preparing for down the road. Like they have 2 great defensive ends.
Yep.
They've got Hubbard and Henderson. They didn't need another one, but here's a guy who fell. It's a position of peak importance, and they liked him a lot, and so they went that way, and that was kind of their plan all the way. Everyone had him going tight end, but it was going to be D-line was kind of where they wanted to be, and their D-line's already very good.
Right.
So
I thought they were going to take one of the good corners.
Anytime you talk to somebody down there, they like their 3. They like those 3 corners they have, but they need a Awuzie to get back healthy, obviously.
Right. And Cam Taylor-Britt, at least maybe as the season went on, got better, but he was rough against us, boy.
Yeah. So we will finally have an ability to pick tonight. We will pick at 74 and 98 as we sit right now. With those picks and the fact that we have 8 picks over the next 2 days, there is the opportunity to be nimble.
Yep.
That is there, and so I suppose that's in play too this evening.
So my wish list for today and or tomorrow would be that the Browns make a trade for DeAndre Swift. First and foremost, I think you can send them one of your 5th-round picks there. And then beyond that, just see how it falls. If there's a guy you really like, there are opportunities to move up at 62 or 66 with the Eagles. The Eagles, I believe, don't have 4th or 5th round picks.
Correct.
So, I think
they are actively trying to accrue day 3 picks early.
Well, guess what? We've got them. So
Yep.
that would be a great place to go if there's somebody in that second round, at 62 that you like. Let's say Josh Downs from North Carolina or Jalen Hyatt are still on the board, and you're like, you know what? This is an opportunity for us to get a great receiver. Let's do it. Weapons, weapons, weapons. It's an arm race. I was saying that
Gosh, it is, isn't it?
all night on this show last night. It's an arms race. The draft picks, other than nonsensical ones, were all about getting quarterbacks, pass catchers late, offensive tackles, and then edge rushers, interior pass rushers, and corners.
Yeah.
That's the draft.
Weapons.
And then stop
the opposite
weapons.
of weapons.
Yeah.
Defense systems.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
it.
that was it. As I was watching it, it was you see like Buffalo getting the tight end late, and you think about this AFC, and it was hammered home even more so with now that you know what Baltimore is going to be, because while you and I can sit here and I think we're probably lockstep on this, it's hard for me to imagine Baltimore winning like a Super Bowl with this operation the way that it's set with this style of play. But of course we don't know what Todd will get the best out of him. Whatever it is, he'll get it. He's that brilliant. I think we both agree on that. But in terms of this, that part can be true. It can also be true that like trying to project 2 wins a year against Baltimore for us is brutal. They are so brutal to play in the regular season. Like they're going to win 10 games. If he's healthy, they're winning 10 games.
Now,
so and then you do that throughout the AFC, and you think about. I mean, I'm watching Belichick trade down. It was amazing. Like he did it out of spite, right, to keep the kid from the Jets that they really wanted. He did it with the Steelers to keep him out.
And they panicked.
They panicked. Like it was clear. Like you could tell when they took the shot of their room. Like they were panicky about it. But like you look at New England and you're like, what's the roadmap here?
None. They're going to try not let you score on them. I mean, they got another good defensive player, but none really.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like
they're not a serious team.
No, not at all. And they'll be. Howard, like playing 6 games against Miami, the Jets, and the Bills. How are they not 1-5 in those 6?
Or 2-4.
Right.
Yeah. The AFC this is the best conference there has ever been in the history of the NFL.
I have no problem with that. And I know people push back. They're our age. They go, oh, the NFC in the 80s and 90s. The difference is the top of those teams were absolutely elite and some of the best teams of all time. Like the 49ers teams were ridiculous. Some of those Cowboys teams were ridiculous. But it was a much smaller sample size. It was 3 or 4 teams. It wasn't 10.
You knew who was coming out of the NFC. It was either the Niners or the Cowboys or sometimes Niners and
the Giants,
Redskins, but you knew which team it was.
Yeah, but there was
you knew who else was serious.
There were 4 or 5 teams that were serious.
And
there's 10 here in the AFC.
There are serious teams that are not going to make the playoffs. Teams
are going to miss the playoffs by 2 and 3 games.
Teams that would likely be the number 2 seeds in the NFC.
Yes.
Will miss the playoffs in the AFC.
But I also think like getting to 10 wins could be enough to make the playoffs if everybody's beating up on everybody. Like the AFC North faces the NFC West.
Well, that's beneficial for us.
I mean,
Seattle's a full day, but Arizona's going to be terrible. LA is going to be terrible.
49ers.
And the 49ers with they're going to be a full day just because of Kyle, but I mean, their quarterback situation's tight. But you benefit from that. But man,
you're going to have to win your.
Every time I would see an AFC team pick, I would just go, "Good God, really? They're picking? They got that? Crazy." And Pittsburgh's got the first pick tonight. Like they're going to get Joey Porter Jr.
I wonder if I can't imagine they're not shopping that and treating that like a first-round pick.
They might, but they might just take Joey Porter Jr. and get the corner they needed all along.
So Dane has them taking in his mock draft, and he'll join us.
We
Brian
actually have to break because
Branch,
Dane's
who is
ready.
the safety from Alabama, because they do need another safety. Edmonds is gone, so they put him back there with Minka. But I mean, either way,
their secondary will get
one
better.
of those two. Yeah.
All right, Dane will join us on all of that coming up next. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. When a medical mistake calls you injury, call the medical malpractice attorneys at 1-800-ELK-OHIO. Elk & Elk's proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Always fun when we can talk to Dane Brugler from The Athletic, especially on the day of day 2 of the draft. He joins us now, of course, on the Twisted Tea hotline. Dane, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start before we get into tonight and all of the names. As you look back on last night, what was the most surprising from a positive perspective, and what was most surprising from a negative perspective?
Well, what a fun night! With first round, a lot of surprises, the quarterbacks, the dominoes there, a lot of trades, a lot of turning points in the draft where it kind of veered the first round in different directions. You have to start with the Texans, 2 and 3, trading that future pick to go up and get Will Anderson. This feels like Will Anderson was kind of the guy that D'Amico Ryans and that staff had their eye on. And then maybe ownership came in and said, guys, we got to take a quarterback. But you know what? We'll still try to go get your guy. And so they take C.J. Stroud at 2, and then they go back up to get the defensive cornerstone that D'Amico Ryans really wanted all along. And it was a hefty price. But you know what? They were aggressive, and we'll see how it works out in hindsight. A couple of the teams that had multiple first-round picks, Seattle, I thought they crushed it with Devin Witherspoon at 5. And then Jackson Smith-Njigba at 20. Smith-Njigba was just perfect in that offense in the slot. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf on the outside. Just with Geno Smith and the way he played, just a perfect fit for that, what he does and what Seattle wants to be on offense. Those would be the highlights. In terms of surprises, from a more, maybe didn't love the surprises. 15, the Jets taking Will McDonald. I think that the Jets were in an interesting spot because they were, first of all, they moved back 2 spots in the Aaron Rodgers trade. And then I think they were just wiped out. Broderick Jones, the left tackle, went 1 pick before them. The Steelers moved up to go get him. Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back from Alabama, went to the Lions at 12. I was told that the Jets had their eyes on him. We hear running back in first round and people lose their minds, but it's more his skill position. That's what Jahmyr Gibbs is. He's an offensive weapon, a guy that he's going to play in the slot. He's going to play outside. Really diversify your offense. And so even though 12 was a little early, 2 running backs in the top 12, that surprised a lot of people. I'm excited to see what Gibbs can do with Ben Johnson calling the plays there in Detroit, the offense they have. That should be a lot of fun.
Going back to the Jets real quickly, why wouldn't they just take Christian Gonzalez and say we're going to have Sauce Gardner on one side and Christian Gonzalez on the other? And if it felt like they panicked a little bit, Dave, why not just do that?
Obviously, Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh and what the people making the picks there with the Jets, they really value pass rush. And when you look at, because I think we have to forecast, what's the 2024 roster look like? What's 2025 roster look like? Carl Lawson, this is probably his last year with the Jets. As you forecast forward, pass rusher becomes more of a need for that Jets front 7. And Will McDonald, I grade him as a second-round player. He is a really good athlete. We know that, but stopping the run, being more of a complete, well-rounded player, he's not there yet. And will he get there? Maybe, but he's a fifth-year senior. He's going to be 24 years old. I question the upside that we talk about with a caliber of athlete like this who just hasn't put it all together yet. But in the Jets, they sub in and out quite a bit. And so I did think that, Will McDonald should have some really nice flash plays this year because they're going to keep him fresh. They're not going to ask him to go out there and be a starter. They're going to bring him in sub packages. And if the Jets are scoring points on offense and they have some leads and defenses are trying to, have to pass it to catch up, Will McDonald might be able to tee off a little bit. So, I think he'll have some nice moments, but ultimately living up to being the 15th overall pick, I think that might be tough.
Dane, obviously one of the stories of last night was Will Levis falling into the second round and going undrafted. Which team should have picked him once you got to 4 and he wasn't picked?
Yeah, and I was told that several teams were calling in the late first round to possibly go up and get Will Levis. But, the Eagles at 30, they loved having Nolan Smith fall in their laps. They weren't moving. The Chiefs at 31, with the draft being in Kansas City, that mattered. I mean, the Chiefs got trade offers, and they decided to stay put because the draft was in Kansas City. They took Felix Sanaduke-Uzama, a Kansas City native. Clark Hunt, the owner, was out there. I mean, it was a big show, and they couldn't trade away from that pick. And I think the same thing with the Saints at 29, the Bengals at 28. None of those teams wanted to move, but there were teams calling to get up into that late first round to possibly go get Will Levis. So now it becomes interesting. I mean, you could have made a case that the Bucs at 19, they don't really have an identity at quarterback. Will Levis could have given them that a long-term plan at the position. But now it becomes interesting in the second round. Who is going to be that team that takes him? The Rams would be such a good fit to sit there and learn. He's going to a very similar system. Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator, when he had that special season in 2021 at Kentucky, that's where he cut his teeth with the Rams. They went back, and now he's back at Kentucky. So I think of Will Levis. The Titans are still in the mix here, but if the Rams, if they look for a quarterback, Hendon Hooker, Will Levis, early in that second round makes sense.
Dane, talk to us about your thoughts on what the other teams in the AFC North did. We had to sit here and watch them get players that they certainly hope can help their football teams. What did you think of the AFC North's performance yesterday?
Yeah, and I think obviously that's tough if you're the Browns because you just watch the other three teams in the division get better. The left tackle was a glaring need for the Steelers. They've got Dan Moore, who's been okay, then nothing behind him, and so by trading up to get Broderick Jones, you upgrade that position, and it feels like the Steelers have their guy for the long term at a premium position. And then the Ravens, we talked about with Odell Beckham now in the mix, does that shift their focus to corner or edge rusher? Now keep adding to that wide receiver depth chart, and all of a sudden area of a lot of question marks looks more like a strength now when you factor in Rashad Bateman coming back from the injury. They signed Nelson Aguilar, Odell Beckham in the mix, and then you add Zay Flowers, who can be that three-level threat. He put more on tape this year of working down the field. He's undersized, 5'9", 180, but he can make things happen. He can get open and then create after the catch. So, it's just another athlete you have to defend if you're a defense going up against Baltimore. And then with Cincinnati, I thought that, somewhere on the defensive line made the most sense. They haven't drafted a true defensive lineman since back in 2001, Justin Smith. But Miles Murphy is a guy that if you're going to draw up a defensive end, this is what it looks like. And, he didn't always play to that level, and that's why he was available at 28. But speed, length, size, power, projecting him forward, I think the Bengals are betting on those traits for him to emerge as one of the better pass rushers in the division.
Well, and they can have patience for it too, because obviously they're set at the position already, so they can kind of slow play that a little bit. Dane, as we turn our attention into tonight, into the second and third round, before we get into some of the specifics or try to figure out who will be there at 74, is there a position, maybe was there a run on the first round that maybe leaves more value in the second and third at specific positions? What are the positional strengths, I guess, coming into tonight in both the second and third round?
Well, we only saw one tight end off the board, so I think we'll see plenty of tight ends off the board tonight. We only saw one linebacker off the board, and of course it was Jack Campbell, which is a big surprise, going in the top 20 as early as he did. But, Trenton Simpson, Drew Sanders, Deion Henley, we'll see some linebackers go. And, that's an interesting position for the Browns. I think we've really zeroed in on defensive line. But, could they surprise us and go linebacker if the right guy is there, like a Trenton Simpson, who's just a superb athlete? That's everything's on the table for this team, especially on defense. We saw a run on receivers, but there's still some really quality receivers out there with Josh Downs, Tyler Scott. It's Cedric Tillman. It's a position that will stretch a little bit. And then I think you look at the top nickels in this draft. We're going to see a few of those guys off the board: Clark Phillips, Quan Martin, and that's a position I think the Browns will be watching closely.
Dana, who is the one person that if you had, pick 32 or you wanted to come up, like who is the biggest surprise to you that they did not go in the first round?
Well, obviously with Will Levis, that's something that we thought would happen. But for me, Michael Mayer, Notre Dame, he is just a rock solid player. Exactly. Maybe he doesn't have that ceiling as a player that really enticed a team in the first round, but he's going to come in and produce for you right away, and so there's value in that. I'm a big Brian Branch fan from Alabama. No, he's not the biggest. He's 190 pounds. No, he's not. Doesn't have that blazing speed. Ran a 4.58 40-yard dash. But watch his tape and tell me you don't love the player. Whether he's lined up in the nickel or he's playing safety, he's an outstanding tackler, and he can cover. He can cover slot receivers. He can cover tight ends. Very smart player, and that's actually where I came out with a day 2 mock draft, second and third rounds today, and I have the Steelers. A lot of people are putting Joey Porter Jr. there, and maybe that will be the pick. I have Brian Branch going 32 to the Steelers, which I think would be a home run pick for Pittsburgh if they're able to pull that off. Brian Branch is a first-round player all day, and to add that to your secondary is really a luxury.
Amazing that the Steelers are picking 32nd because they traded Chase Claypool to the Bears.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a stunning thing. So we were talking earlier about Bijan and talking about even what the Lions did, and is it as a draft analyst and somebody who then tries to understand what's going to happen in the draft, was it stunning to you to see a team that had a guy in the 5th round last year, averaged 5 yards a carry, rushed for more than 1,000 yards? They're the number 3 rushing offense in the league without really a quarterback running, that they would go with another running back. Like, how much better can he be at number 8? And then you have the Lions, who showed last year Jamal Williams off the scrap heap can lead the league in rushing touchdowns. You actually upgrade with David Montgomery for him. And then DeAndre Swift, yes, he's been hurt at times, but is electric when he's on the field, and they get another electric guy. So they're going to end up, it would seem, like I would love, and I don't know how you feel about it, but I'd love for the Browns to say, here's a 5th rounder, give us DeAndre Swift as a 1-year rental. I think he'd be great in our offense. But were you surprised by those two, not just for the fact that they're running backs, but also given what the other teams had and have seen be effective in their roster as recently as last season?
You're thinking exactly how NFL GMs are thinking. When they see a pick like that, their minds immediately go to, maybe DeAndre Swift is available here, and it's not going to cost that much. And we know that he could be available. And so they signed David Montgomery, and with the addition of Jahmyr Gibbs. But again, I think with Jahmyr Gibbs, it's not fair to just call him a running back, because even at Alabama, he was in the slot 25% of the time. He led that team in receptions.
Yep.
He had his ability to catch the football is as big of a value to what he does than anything. And so I think that's – and Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator there in Detroit, I think it's a great fit for his mind and what he wants to do. So, and if Jahmyr Gibbs didn't go 12, he was going somewhere in the top 20. Teams really liked Jahmyr Gibbs. But it was a little bit of a shock to see where he went. But I think if we remember, DeAndre Swift, he wasn't drafted by this front office, this head coach, and so not a huge surprise maybe that they want to possibly move on and what they see to be an upgraded position. And then with Bijan, I mocked it in my final mock draft, so I wasn't a huge surprise. Especially when you look at that offense, Arthur Smith, what he wants to be. They want to be diverse. They want to be versatile. And Bijan Robinson gives you that. Forget the running back route tree. He's running the wide receiver route tree. Throw in the Iowa State tape. Watch him run a post down the field. He brings something a little bit different than I think what they currently have on the roster. And so it's not just about toting the rock and being a bruiser. It's more about being diverse and and especially when they have their quarterback situation the way it is, being able to win with the run game, but in different ways, then also use Bijan Robinson as a skill player. Because again, I think we hear first-round running back and people lose their minds. We have to focus on these guys being offensive skill players and weapons. And now that doesn't mean that the team drafting them is going to use them the right way. But I think Arthur Smith in Atlanta, Ben Johnson, Detroit, I think these two running backs went to spots where the play callers are going to understand how to best use their talents.
The Detroit one, I guess I can understand more because he is a weapon. It's just and Goff is very good throwing the ball to running backs or short area throws. But the one in Atlanta, it's like you can't. I don't care how weak the NFC is compared to the AFC. You can't win a Super Bowl being a team that is relying. I mean, in Tennessee, where Arthur Smith was, they had a great defense. They had Derrick Henry. They were a 1 seed at one point. They made it to an AFC Championship game, but it never felt like they were serious threats to win. And I just don't see how you're like, let's go to that model once again. I mean, I think with Algier, they can run it if they traded back a few times and then they took Jackson Smith and Jigba. Now you got Pitts, Smith and Jigba, you got Drake London, and you have a kid who averaged 5 yards a carry as a rookie. Maybe you have a chance to at least score some points.
I think it's totally fair. I think it'll be really interesting to see how they use this offense. Are we talking more 22 personnel? Are we talking, using Bijan as a true slot receiver at times, and with Tyler Algier in the backfield? I'm really interested to see how they do this. The Atlanta has shown the last 2 drafts, position value doesn't mean a whole lot for them. They're hunting playmakers. Take Kyle Pitts in the top 5 at tight end, which to this point hasn't worked out.
No.
But I still think there's optimism there. Drake London in the top 10 last year, who brings size to the position, and now taking a running back in the top 8 picks, who is as diverse as a running back could be with all the different ways that he can beat you. It's really all about forcing defenses to, really stress out defenses with the way that they can cover you and match up. And I think Arthur Smith sees Bijan Robinson as a matchup problem and how the different ways, different formations, different personnel groupings. So I totally understand the skepticism, but I'm eager to find out, watching that Atlanta offense, to see how they deploy all these players and the personnel groupings they use.
Dane, great stuff as always, bud. Thanks for joining us on a busy day.
No, anytime. Thanks, guys.
All right, that's Dane Brugler with The Athletic. He is the best in the business. His draft guide, Every Year the Beast, is something that we rely upon greatly, and you should too. It's great stuff. It really is.
Yeah, and Dane, in this, in case people are wondering, for us at pick, and I still think we could trade up. For example, Josh Downs in his second-round mock goes 63rd to Kansas City. I still think we could trade to 62 with Philly to take a guy like Josh Downs if he were on the board, the wide receiver out of North Carolina. Weapons. In Dane's mock at 74, he has the Browns taking Gervon Dexter, senior, the defensive tackle out of Florida, which has been mocked to us. 1 pick ahead of Marvin Mims Jr., who's, again, I think another guy the Browns would be very interested in if he is there at 74. He actually has them going to the Falcons, which would be a great pick for them. And then at pick number 98, he has Isaiah McGuire, the edge from Missouri, coming to the Browns. Now, Zach Harrison, if you were wondering, because a lot of people are looking at, can the Browns get Zach Harrison? He goes 69 in this mock to the Rams.
And for the record, Lance Zierlein just dropped his 2-round mock today.
Yeah.
He's got Harrison to the Browns at 98.
So
that'd be something if he fell that far down.
And then he's got Devon Ashani, running back out of Texas A&M at 74 to us.
I think the the thing with Harrison that is appealing, and I think a reason why it fits kind of the MO for what we draft. I mean, former 5-star, big state U.
Yeah.
It fits a lot of the things that we like. And he's honestly in college has been a lot similar to what Clowney was when he was here. Like great pressure rate, but doesn't get home, and that was kind of the beat. That was kind of the knock on him coming out of Ohio State. But in terms of like him playing opposite Miles, landing somebody like that, and I think a lot of people speak of him. The reason I speak of him because we know him. Like a lot of these other defensive ends, we weren't paying that close attention to the guys who could be around at that point. But you know who Zach Harrison is. So he was actually his decision to go to Ohio State was part of a big factor in Jim Harbaugh for like a 3-year period not recruiting Ohio.
Yeah,
he thought he had him, and then on signing day, Ohio State flipped him back. Because he's a Powell kid, and they flipped him back, and Harbaugh said, to hell with it. I'm not going to recruit Ohio for like 3 years.
Last night, top 10, got to help Ryan Day in that recruiting down at Ohio State.
It's unbelievable what they've done at receiver. It's just absolutely crazy what the amount of talent that comes.
I mean, look at all the Ohio State picks. 2 in the top 5?
Well, they have 90.
6?
They now have 90 first-rounders, which is the most all-time of anybody. 90 first-rounders.
So. Nothing to see here.
No, it's a stunning level of talent. Do we have Chris Rose up next? Are we
I
working
believe
on that?
So. He was in a production meeting.
Okay.
I'm awaiting word. We might have to flip a segment or two.
That's fine. We'll sort it
we'll
all
be
out.
ready.
Everyone's going to win. Final hour, Cleveland Browns Lately, brought
winning.
to you by Ballybet. Coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Oh, boy. Experience full throttle family fun at Monster Jam. World-class athletes, 12,000-pound monster trucks tear up the dirt, wide open competition, speed and skill. Witness massive stunts, big air, backflips, fierce head-to-head battles for event championships. Simply put, the most action-packed motorsports experience for families in the world. It comes to Cleveland Browns Stadium Saturday, June 3rd. For more info or purchase tickets, go to clevelandbrownsstadium.com. And now, we head out on the hotline for visit our great friend Chris Rose, NFL Network host. NFL draft for you means what, sir?
Means I get to hang out with our buddy Joe Thomas,
That's a win.
for a couple of days.
What a treat.
So that's always good. Yeah, I mean, I get to do the pregame show. So this is the first time in a little over a decade where the pregame show isn't at the site. It just didn't work out this year for a few logistical reasons. And so, I mean, it's still good because you still get the atmosphere out there. Yesterday, Melissa Stark was on the red carpet interviewing these 17 kids that were in the green room, and we get to see who they are, how they dress, which is, by the way, amazing. Holy smokes, that NIL money is
They've done well.
crisp
It's good.
these days. I don't know if you saw Melissa interview Anthony Richardson, now of the Colts. So he was up there with his mom and with his brother, who, when you look at him, first of all, he sounds just like Anthony Richardson. And if you haven't heard Anthony Richardson talk, he should be doing voiceover work. He has got a deep, deep baritone voice. So his brother, who is literally about half of his size, also has a deep, deep, maybe even deeper voice than Anthony. And I was thinking to myself, my God, how old is it? He must be 17 or 18, just kind of got shortchanged in the gene pool. Well, I talked to Melissa afterwards. She was like, no, he's 13. I was like, 13? It's the deepest voice I've ever heard on a 13-year-old. So it was fun.
Wild. What did you think of last night? A lot of surprises, a lot of movement, a lot of big swings. What was your big takeaway from last night?
I thought that it was nice that Houston has a plan. None of us know if it's going to work. And by the way, listen, I am the biggest draft geek there is. I have been following it for more than 4 decades, back when it was held on a Tuesday. And my brother, who's almost 5 years older than I am, he was always the smart one in the family. He would pretend to be sick on draft day. And if you're late to the party, you can't have 2 sick kids in the same household because your parents will figure it out. So he was always the one home and then, listening to the draft. So I'm a huge draft nerd. Anybody that gives you draft grades today is an idiot. There's no such thing as grading a draft less than 24 hours after it happens. So you can be excited about your draft. You can be pissed off about your draft, whatever it is.
Sure.
Don't listen to draft grades. Grade your draft 4 years after it happens. Then you can go for it. But, I at least like it that Houston had a plan, that they go get C.J. Stroud, that they trade up for Will Anderson. Yes, they gave up an awful lot to go get him for a guy who we don't think is like a Myles Garrett. But, they're trying to nail down 2 of the most important positions on the football field. I ain't going to hate them for it.
Chris, I had an interesting kind of perspective last night watching. Obviously, we don't have a pick and don't until 74, and the reason for that is you got a franchise quarterback, and there's a cost for that. But as I'm watching these AFC teams pick, and you just think of this arms race that we're in the AFC, and it was exacerbated by Aaron Rodgers' deal officially getting done earlier in the week, and then Lamar Jackson's deal getting done yesterday. And Nathan and I have talked about this a lot. Just from your perspective, has there ever been a conference like this AFC right now where as many as maybe 10 teams wake up in the morning and go, oh, yeah, we can go win the Super Bowl?
Well, not only that, I don't think there's ever been a bigger disparity between the 2 conferences in my life.
Yep.
No.
Right?
Nope.
No,
how
never.
many legitimate – there could be a team that slips through, but outside of the Niners, Eagles, and Cowboys, do you feel great about any other NFC team?
Well, and even 2 of the 3 you mentioned have question marks. I mean, the Niners don't have health at quarterback right now.
I think
Right.
I was saying
Right.
earlier, I think it's possible, Chris, that there are 1 or maybe 2 teams in the AFC that do not make the playoffs at the end of this season that would have been the 2 seed in the NFC.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Nathan. I really would. I think that – and that's why it's
crazy.
so important for Deshaun Watson to get back to what he was,
To have a chance.
Just,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he has to. He has to in order for them to get to where they want to go. And part of that reason is because you need your quarterback to be exceptional. There won't be a team that slides through with all due respect, a Ryan Tannehill getting them to the Super Bowl in the AFC. It's not going to happen.
Yep.
So your quarterback that you expect to be elite has to be elite. And the other part of the equation is that obviously we haven't had the first and second rounders these last 2 years to help fortify whatever holes that your team may have. So that means that you have to make prudent free agent decisions, which I think the Browns have done very well in the offseason. And I've talked to a lot of people here at the network who have really liked what Andrew Berry and the personnel department have done here in the offseason. And the other thing is that some of those middle round picks that we've had have got to grow up. They just have to. Like, those guys who get drafted in the third and fourth rounds, they say, well, all I want is an opportunity. Well, the Browns have given some of those guys opportunities. You either can make it and go get your second contract in the NFL and then maybe a third one down the line, or you can be a one-and-done contract and we almost blink and you weren't a part of the NFL landscape very long. So if a team's giving you the opportunity, make sure that you are doing everything you can to leave an impression. So there's opportunity there. Some guys have to seize it now.
No doubt, and that's what this team's going to be about, the few opportunities that exist, people seizing them and trying to put together this complete 53. We did have to watch teams that had the opportunity last night to add to their rosters in our division. The Steelers, the Ravens getting Zay Flowers, signing Lamar Jackson. Steelers getting off a left tackle that they were looking for. The Bengals get another guy on the defensive line. What did you think of our division and how they bettered themselves or attempted to better themselves last night?
Yeah, well, I don't think you can fault the Bengals for doing that. I mean, the kid out of Clemson, we've heard a lot about. There were a lot of mocks that had him in the upper half of the draft for a long time. So, you're going to hear a lot of people say that's a great value pick. And you can't go wrong with an edge rusher, even if he's a little bit on the raw-ish side. I was begging the Ravens, please pass on Zay Flowers. Please pass on Zay Flowers because I love him. I think he is a really talented player. And it's interesting, the Ravens have done virtually nothing in this offseason. They signed 2 free agents. It was Odell and Nelson Aguilar. So they have brought in 3 receivers, and that's it in the offseason. So we'll see and they don't have a lot of draft capital the rest of the other 2 days here. Pittsburgh, smart move. They had been a mess up front for a long time. They keep trying to revamp that and bring in some guys that will help them. And so I thought all those moves made sense for those teams. It wasn't like a head-scratcher for any of them.
Chris, when you think of the big pictures of last night and as we transition today, you can't help but think about Will Levis, a kid who there weren't many mocks that didn't have him going in the top 10. A lot of them had him going 4 to Indy. He sat through it all last night and is reportedly apparently not going to be there tonight, which I don't blame him. What did you make of the theater of the draft and then Levis's kind of being front and center with all of it?
Well, there's always one guy, it feels like, at least every couple of years, right? It was Lamar Jackson with his head on the table in 2018, and by the time Baltimore traded back up into the first round to snag him with the last pick, he looked exhausted, right? But little did we know he ended up in a great situation and now has the highest AV of any NFL player 5 years later. And I would actually disagree with you, Bo. I think that Will Levis missed an opportunity today. And I know it's easy for me, a guy who's 30 years older than Will Levis, to say this now, but if I were giving him advice, I would have said, all right, listen, dude, you just took your first gut punch in the NFL. And that's going to happen. If you're going to be a quarterback in this league, there's going to be Sundays you are going to throw 3 interceptions, and you're going to have to stand in front of the microphones and say, damn it, I was the reason we lost. And that's going to go a long way in helping you and helping your team. Just play it out here. If he had stayed, somebody's going to take him in the first 5 or 10 picks today. I mean, if it doesn't, it's just going to be a complete shocker, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So why wouldn't you go through that, have this be a part of your story, talk to Melissa Stark today, and say, yesterday was really hard for me. I expected to go. I didn't. It was disappointing. There are things I obviously have to work on, and I'm going to use that. I am going to be better because of it, even though it stinks right now. I think that the narrative shifts from, everybody going, okay, well, why didn't Will Levis go? He's got the bad toe. He takes the shirtless selfies. He didn't interview great, too. Hey, you know what? That kid learned something in a really difficult time. Being quarterback is more than just throwing a hitch route, right? It's a lot of different pieces that are constantly moving in different variables. I think it would have been smart for him to stay.
Yeah, it's a tough situation because you don't know if and when you're going to go. But I hear you. I think he's gotten the empathy, I think, from a lot of people just going through it. It was kind of excruciating to have to see him go through that. But, yeah, it's curious to see who will take him now and where that ends up. Could it be Tennessee? But, boy, that doesn't feel like a great place to end up if you're a quarterback right now either. So that's going to be a fascinating part of today. What do you want to see from the Browns today?
Defensive line help. They still need help in the interior, in my opinion. It's a deep edge rush class. They've got to get more rotational pieces out there. It was Miles, and then the next guy had 3 sacks.
Yep.
That's not good enough. And I know that sacks isn't the end-all, be-all stat, but I think we all know that that's unacceptable. So I would start there. It still feels like we need a slot corner. This is not a great linebacker class. And I know that it feels like our linebacking room is a little bit disjointed, whether that's because of some guys coming back from injuries or some guys not playing as great as we had anticipated. So maybe somewhere there. The nice thing is we've got, 2 3s, and we have 2 4s or 2 5s. I forget which one it is.
2 5s. 2 3s, 2 5s.
2 5s. Okay. So, we're going to get a chance to see some guys who will have a chance. I mean, that's kind of where we've been the last several drafts. We're giving guys opportunities, and that's where it continues. Am I missing anything, like positionally?
No, I was going to ask if there
we
was
need depth at safety.
I definitely think we need another safety. I think they're looking for maybe a safety nickel type, like a Jamie Robinson out of Florida State would be somebody who would kind of fit that bill.
Yeah, he's a guy.
I'm not afraid of at 74 if there's a receiver that we really liked that fell.
No,
take
same.
him. I just think this is all about weapons, and the fact of the matter is Donovan Peoples-Jones has played himself into a position where he's going to be expensive at the end of this season. And you would imagine he's going to have a career year with Deshaun Watson. So I think that you got Elijah Moore. That's good. Goodwin is still kind of a short-term rental. I think if you can get somebody else that you feel can be that 2-3 mix, obviously I'd love to keep Donovan. He's my guy. Couldn't be happier for all that he's accomplished. But that could be a tough one. So I could see the Browns go ahead and making a move. By the way, I was wrong about it. We have 2 3s, 2 4s, 2 5s, a 6, and a 7.
That's
still 8 picks to go. 2 3s, 2 4s, 2 5s, a 6, 7. Which I don't think we'll take all those. And one thing that was talked about today, Chris, was that the Eagles are looking to get from either 62 or 66 to accumulate. They don't really have any day 3 picks. Well, we got plenty of them. So I wouldn't mind moving up to 62 or 66 if there was a player that we really wanted.
Absolutely, and that's what makes it fun for us.
Yep.
There's no question about it. The thing about the wide receiver, and I understand what you're saying, Nathan, about more weapons and things of that nature, but sometimes guys do make significant leaps from year 1 to year 2, and I'm a fan of David Bell.
Yeah.
I just am. I liked him coming out of Purdue. He got slowed down by that injury in camp, and it just felt like he was constantly playing catch-up.
Yep.
I still think that he is a guy that can help us out somewhere. I really do. And, you have to remember that we're basically in the same position we were last year, right? We traded out